What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eickman. Together, we're about to embark on an inspiring journey. Our community thrives on the wisdom of insightful leaders that are right here in our backyard. And we're bringing their expertise to your ears. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your guide. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence. What's up? Welcome to the Homegrown Hustle podcast. I'm Matt Eickman here with Samantha Jean, a benefit consultant with Aflac. Thank you so much for joining this morning. I've only got one question for you. How many times a day do you have to milk a goat? Sorry.
2 is recommended.
All right. So there's a reason I asked that.
At least.
Samantha and I were talking before we hopped on, and she actually has a history of milking goats, and she started, what do you call it, a dairy goat farm in Haiti, which I don't think I know a lot of people that have done that. So I'm really interested to hear about that. Thanks again for joining us. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Samantha Jean, and just really excited to be here. I was born and raised in the Forest Lake area, so a native, and I've done a fair amount of wandering and living other areas in Minnesota or across the ocean in Haiti, but I have landed back here. So I'm super excited. I work currently, we live in Scandia, so just right next door, and work here locally in the North Metro, partnering with businesses and helping them bring in the best benefits that they can for their staff. And when I'm not working and hanging out with people in our community, doing stuff through the chamber and that kind of thing, then I'm hanging out with my 2 and 3-year-old Matthew and Elijah.
Awesome. Matthew, that's a great name. Good choice.
Right?
So, Samantha, tell me a little bit about, early on, you said you grew up working on a goat farm.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what that was like. And how old were you at that time?
Well, I started when I was 15.
15. Okay.
Yep. So I would bike to and from. And
This sounds like my dad. He worked on a dairy farm, though, but
yeah.
Keep going.
Oh, man. And I always said I would never want to milk cows because that's a whole different big animal. I don't know. It's just a different scale.
I have no idea.
Milking.
Both of the jobs seem like I don't want that. But
yes, it's we get dirty for sure, but great honest work. I definitely appreciate starting there and just having that experience on the farm. Like we were talking about earlier, just the responsibility, being able to learn that component right from the get-go. Like there is no cutting corners, taking shortcuts in your duties. And I just find that very valuable and what it's lended to in everything else I've done since.
Tell me more about that. How has it lent to everything else?
Well, I just see it's accountability, right? And whether or not someone is looking, this job needs to be done the right way all the time. And when you have animals depending on you to feed them, to give them water, they can't go get water themselves. Like if you miss a step, that's a big deal. And the consequences are often, immediate and very evident. They're right there. And I think just having that set in stone from like right out the get-go, I've been in roles where I don't have someone looking over my shoulder. And it's never a question. Like, do you do all of the job, every single step of it, and to completion in the right way? Or do you take shortcuts if you ever presented the opportunity and like no one's looking, And so when you start with just right out the gate, like, nope, you make sure every step is done in the right way and every time, no matter if someone's going to ever see it or not. Like,
and were you doing this?
Awesome.
Like, so at 15, were you kind of working by yourself while you're doing that, or were there other?
There would be other farm hands. And then, so milking, we would always at least have 2 people on for milking because industry language, but essentially we would milk 48 goats at a time and with 12 different milking machines. So each milking machine was assigned 4 goats and you'd have to move it through the series, right? And down how
often do you have to do that a day?
Twice a day. At least. Some farms do 3, but twice a day at least. So every 12 hours, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon.
So you're doing split shifts all the time then?
Not me every
Oh,
day. Yes, but a lot of times, especially in the summer. I
mm-hmm.
was in school at the time, so
Yep.
during the week I couldn't be doing 3 a.m. shifts,
Mm-hmm.
even though I wanted to a lot of the time. But during the summer, I would do the morning shift too. And yeah, so you show up and then you've got your other milking buddy that would show up and
Awesome. What a cool
just go
experience.
to work. Yeah. And then you got all of the fun stuff that comes along with farming throughout the summer, doing hay and all of your harvesting and
Fun. Yeah.
well,
That's kind of what I think about when I think about fun too.
yeah.
Hey.
Picking rocks out of the field. Yeah. Actually throwing hay bales, those were sometimes pretty long and brutal days. You'd
Yeah.
come home with just your whole arm scratched up and down, like all the little hay cuts.
I mean, it's hard work doing that 15. So you did that all through high school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then
And some in college, like during the summers.
okay. And then you studied psychology in
Mhm.
college. And while you were doing that, you also started doing some event marketing.
Yeah.
But when did the whole Haiti mission trip thing come up again? Like in that whole scheme of things, you're in college and you went to Haiti your first time.
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience and kind of how it impacted like the rest of your trajectory.
Yeah. Well, I was definitely in a transition phase, and
Mhm.
probably all of us are in those
Yeah.
weird late teens, early 20
Yeah,
years.
super awkward.
Right.
At least I
And
was.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too. Yeah. You look back and you're like, oh my goodness, how did I even make it through every day? But I had, after graduation, went up to the U of M in Crookston to start studying animal science, actually, because the farming and all of that. I wanted to
Mhm.
do something along those lines. And Crookston is brutal. Like, man, I would take
Yeah.
bucket baths on the south shore of Haiti, like hands down, anytime, a
Mhm.
million times over before
What?
having the winters of Crookston, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Oh man, you just snowed in your house. And so I couldn't hang. I made it 3 semesters up there and I had to move back down here. And so it was about at that point in time that my mom was introduced to an organization called Healing Haiti through Eagle Brook. And she was just
Mhm.
feeling the nudge, like she wanted to go, was being called to go on one of these trips. And so she didn't want to go alone and asked my friend Angie and I if we would want to go with her. That was in 2011. And yeah, it changed my worldview in the
Mhm.
best way. It broke my heart in the best way possible. Cause I think too, like, I don't know, transition period or not, like we are very spoiled here. We have literally any and everything
Yeah.
that we ever want at our fingertips in the blink of an eye. And so you go somewhere else and you literally don't have electricity or you don't have different things. Like it just, and
Take things for granted and then we become
oh my,
ungrateful at
yeah,
times. Like the
yes,
gratitude when like the world kind of like it has to re-level itself because you have this new experience. Like I feel like that's a hard thing to forget, especially when it's during that period in time that is so transitional.
yeah. Oh, unforgettable. Absolutely. Yeah, in the
Hmm.
best way. And you see people living just with joy and smiles on their face
Hmm.
in the midst of a situation that I don't think you would catch most of us being
Yeah.
joyful and smiling over. And you're just like, what do we have wrong? Like somehow we have it all, but we're missing that
Hmm.
in a lot of spaces. And like, I feel like that is somehow way more valuable than whatever we have that's having it
Yeah.
all. And so, yeah, I just was like, just captured by
And it
that.
made you
And
want to
just,
keep going back,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah,
So
for
you went
sure.
back a few times and then you ended
And
up
moving down there.
for a while. You
Yeah.
told mom, "Hey, I'm not coming back,"
Yeah.
but you did end up going back. So why'd you want to stay there? What were you trying to accomplish?
Just I don't even really know that
Hmm.
I had that answer at the beginning because, like I said, I figured it would be something like I was using my college degree and the psychology thing more in like an
Hmm.
HR capacity down there to help like within an organization, like employment, all of those kinds of things. That's kind of what I had in mind. But then here, God brings up my history of milking goats and how perfectly that fits in the needs of another organization that I had been introduced to that was working in a completely different area I had never
Hmm.
been to and all of the things. And you're just like, okay, like that fits too well. Like that's obviously really where I'm supposed to go. And I'm so sorry. I forgot your initial question.
Me too. So what do you have to
And
do when you start up a goat farm?
oh my
Like,
goodness,
what do you
there
have
is
to
so much.
accomplish? Yeah, there is so much, but like Was this like your idea, or you were doing it alongside another organization?
I was doing it through an
Okay.
organization, but
And
I was
is that
kind
kind of
of,
what they do? Is start goat farms?
no,
No.
not at all. So this was
So
a
you were the missing
brand
link.
new like organization. They had just started. They had just relocated to this very remote area and gotten their malnutrition center
Hmm.
established. And so it was very much just us. There was, I think, a max of like 6 to 8 foreigners in our area at any given time.
Hmm.
And sometimes it was just me. And so, you know,
All right.
you were just living, and it wasn't like being in the capital where I'd been before, where you can find people who speak English and kind of like make your way through. Like where
Hmm.
we were, like you spoke Creole or you didn't. And
Oh,
so
word.
I
So you
had to
just
figure that out real
okay.
fast.
Immersion.
Yes, immersion at its finest. And so yeah, we had to start with like finding where we were going to put the farm and the animals.
So are goats like a
and
thing down there, or do you have to like source them?
Well, they are a thing. So
Okay.
yeah, so that is why this was such a pivotal part of like the sustainability component,
Hmm.
because you can keep goats much easier than you can keep cows. And I mean, they're in a mountainous area, they're in dry, they're in slippery,
Yeah.
they're in dusty, all the things. And goats are very resilient. And so they fit well. Plus their milk is the second best to, you know, what we can get if we can't be nursing
Hmm.
and don't have formula, or sometimes, I mean, depends on who you ask, but some would say that goat milk's maybe even better than formula for a younger one. And so it just, yeah, it was a perfect thing that they would be able to sustain and do on their own without any kind of foreigner involvement. The whole idea is to work yourself out of the picture,
Yeah.
right? And how do we set them up to win
So
for a
you're
long time?
starting this up and having to teach in a language that's secondary to you,
It's
right?
a lot of charades.
Talk
Yeah.
about difficulty, right? So like
And learn, right? I did a lot
are
of
some
learning
of
from
the
them.
what are some of the struggles that you had while you were going through that?
Oh my goodness.
Outside of,
I
I mean,
mean,
I'm sure communication is one of them, but anything else that comes to mind?
yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because I guess I didn't really see it as a struggle. It was just kind of a part of the
Fascinating.
process. Like you just laugh about it, right? Like what else can you do?
Just got to keep going.
There were some people that came down in the first day, you know, all the culture shock and coming from the capital to
Hmm.
the airport down to where we were, and
Yeah.
you see 1,000,002 things, and so they're just asking all these questions along the way. What are we going to do about this? What about this? Where are we going to stay? What are we going to eat? And it's like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Like we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And
Hmm.
they're like, you say we'll figure it out a lot. I'm like, it's kind of how you have to live. Like everything is figure outable. Like we'll figure it out.
And
And
have you always been like that?
I think
Figure
so.
it outer? Sick.
Probably.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah.
So
But they're like, you say that a lot. And I'm like, I guess I didn't realize that's maybe not the most assuring answer to everybody. So, but you just take it in stride, right? Like you just have to laugh off through whatever things could be deemed a struggle. I
Mhm.
mean, obviously communication, but like as I do a lot of charades. My fiance at that time is Haitian. So there was a lot that he helped with. Just at the end
Mhm.
of the day, I would call him and just be like, okay, I'm stuck with the guys on this. We haven't been able to figure out, like I'm acting it out or they're acting it out. We haven't been able to connect the dots.
Yeah.
What does this mean? And then
Okay.
so he would help a lot with that too. But yeah, just a lot of just working together and through a language barrier that eventually got
Mhm.
better. Once I was able to ask, how do I say that in Creole? I was off and
Oh,
running. Because then I can
it's
point,
a
I can
power
act it out.
sentence.
I figured that question. I was like,
It's like
okay.
como se dice in Spanish. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Like,
I love that. Okay. So a year and a half, so at the end of that year and a half, I assume that the goat farm's up and running. They've learned all the things there, and now you've worked yourself out of the job.
So yeah.
Essentially? Okay.
So we ended up moving the farm actually back toward the capital city.
Okay.
So
How
yeah,
many goats did you end up
The-
having?
we had 5
Okay.
at max. Yeah. So it was quite a process getting everything started and sourcing food for
Mhm.
them where we were initially located. And everything, just even fencing. We were up in the mountains with the crew guys cutting down bamboo
Just
trees and
problem solving,
them
like
down
in
and
a third world
chopping
country.
them and
That's
just making
cool.
fences. Like it was just amazing. It was really cool, but it was very difficult because how dry our area was. So we were right on sea level, like cut off from the rest of the island essentially by the tallest mountains, and then on the water,
Mhm.
obviously. And somehow it was like the driest and hottest area I've ever been in
Oh
Haiti.
gosh.
We were
It's
like,
not
as
good for
somehow it's
goats.
like the armpit. Like, I don't know how this spot is like,
Yeah.
we would watch the rain up in the mountains. We would watch the rain out on the ocean. We'd be like,
What are we doing wrong
please
here?
come. Yeah. Like, please come over here, rain. So growing like our garden, it was very hard to grow a lush enough garden to be able to support them. So it was a lot of trips up in the mountains to get food and all of that. Anyways, they were ultimately moved to somewhere where it was easier to
Yeah.
sustain them. So it
That's
was good.
important
But
though. Okay.
yes. And then we had a
Problem
chicken
solving.
coop laying eggs, which was really
So
fun too.
so like you have to slowly identify the things that aren't going right and then like make them more right.
Just figure it out. Yeah. Like, how
Um
can we really sustain
that's
this?
so so how do you apply that to what you do now? Like is there overlap? Do you see some of the things that you had to like learn through that process that you
Well, you commented on like, have you always been like that with the figure outable thing?
Mhm.
And I just thought of like one of my most used sentences, I think, in working with new associates in the Aflac world. I always say the F in Aflac stands for flexible. And that was
Hmm.
something that I learned from a trainer a long time ago. And I just realized like the connection of how much I use that now in my day to
Mhm.
day and how it's essentially the same thing. Like there's a lot of things that go wrong when you're, running your schedule and have multiple different meetings. And
Mhm.
especially with business owners who are running companies where umpteen different things can come up that prevent them from being able to keep the meetings or
Mhm.
rescheduling. And it's just, when you're first starting in business for those new associates, that can be like hard. You have a few meetings in one week reschedule and you're like second guessing the world,
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, everything is so hard. And so it's just that encouragement of like F and Aflac stands for flexible. Like whenever you have an hour of time open up, how do we utilize that in the best way? How do we capitalize on that
Mhm.
opportunity of the
Just
time you
figure
just
it
got
out.
back and yeah, get the meeting back on the schedule for when it works and just go from there and don't let it kind of take the wind out of your sails.
Just gotta keep
And
moving.
right. Just figure it out.
So so we kind of skipped over a few things. So you can't after the whole little goat farm scenario, you came back and
Poor
then
goats.
you had a really unique position at Aflac that we were talking about earlier. You talked about essentially having to find people that would want to start their own business as an independent representative of Aflac, right? So
Yep.
like you had to go and like recruit and transition people into business ownership. That's
Yeah.
fascinating to me. Like tell me a little bit about that. And like and I'll ask more questions after. So tell me like what that
It's a
was
fun
like.
challenge.
Yeah.
A fun challenge. Yeah. So our recruiting, we kind of focused on a few different things. Internet recruiting is miserable, which as a business owner, you might know and have had your experience with that. But internet recruiting is miserable. And recruiting in general right now, I mean, even back then, 8 years ago, it's an animal. And right
Mhm.
now, even more so post COVID, even more
Mhm.
so. So there's that route, which is we already covered how that goes, right? So the second route is like, okay, so how do we engage more people like a warm connection, right? A warm
Mhm.
lead. And so I started really picking up along with the regional director, like with the college recruiting. And we hadn't been doing a ton of that here in the Minnesota market, but that was something that we saw a lot of great engagement with and being able to source people through the college experience and then out of college and
So
even
you
before
would
they're
go
in that element.
so you would go to that transition kind of phase and you would
hmm
present them with an opportunity.
Yeah. So for
Smart.
internships and career opportunities out of college. And then from there, too, we did a lot of just encouraging our own team to like the people who are doing what we do and have built their career with it and are doing it really well, like they know and can identify the
Mhm.
things, the intangibles in people that they see that they know would just take off and be able to do really well
Mhm.
in what we do. And so that's another piece of it too, just encouraging the team. Like we currently only serve 3% of our business market here in Minnesota.
Mhm.
It's all about abundance mentality. Like, how do we make sure that we're servicing our current clients in the best way that we have an adequate amount of people on our team to do that, but then also have
The other
people
97%.
right that are going to be able to go out and connect with all the businesses that we haven't been able to touch yet or that we're not partnering with yet. And so just encouraging that abundance mentality of like, we know better than anybody how to identify those people. let's go out and have those conversations and just be mindful, right? It's just so
So
intentional.
what were some of the things that you would look for? Because a lot of people never make a transition into business ownership. So
It's a big
um
jump.
like what would you look for other than just being young and in a transitionary phase? Like were there other qualities or characteristics that you knew would lead to success in that?
Yeah, so I always look for, like I mentioned, the intangibles. It really is not like a resume is great, but with what we do, like there are every different type of business owner, and you're going to be able to connect with a different business owner or a business owner in a different way than I might be able to connect with them. And maybe they would prefer to work with you over me. Like that's just normal. So it's cool to recruit people in. Like it's not necessarily what your background is or what your
Hmm.
resume says. It's really like, how do you show up? Are you positive? Are
Like how do
you
you interact?
respond? Yeah. How do you interact with people? How do you have a conversation? Like a lot of our discernment of that really just came throughout our interview process which is at least a 2-step interview process, but just a face-to-face conversation with that individual of like, what really are you looking for?
Hmm.
And getting a gauge of if are they looking for time freedom? Are they looking for more independence? Have they maybe been in that spot where they've been in a W-2 role, then they showed up one day and found out that their job's no longer there?
Hmm.
You know, they had those different experiences, and what are they really looking for now? And is that going to align with the training and what we have to offer coming into the Aflac world? And then are we
Hmm.
really going to be able to kind of help them get to that next level of success? But we're always very upfront with people too. Like we match effort for effort. If you're coming in and expecting to have hand holding and someone else maybe doing the work
Hmm.
or the legwork for you, like
You get out what you put
right.
into it, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is an effort
So
based
so you
situation.
said something pretty interesting there. You were taught like the beginning of that interaction you're having with them is you're finding out what's important to them.
Right.
And then I would assume part of the process is h- putting Aflac as the thing that helps them accomplish that if
Right.
it is of a potential good fit, right?
Does it
Because that's
fit?
your goal is to
Yeah.
hire people. So you would also, like, in a way, have to sell them
Yeah.
on Aflac as a new career.
Absolutely.
I feel
And
like that's a lot harder than selling insurance.
yeah, I
So,
would agree. Yeah.
like that's a tough sell. So
Yeah. And you have to almost convince people to believe in themselves enough to try something like this when they've never done it
is that the
before.
thing that you would run into the most is
Hmm.
the confidence.
Yes.
So
Either
this is
before
interesting.
ever even getting
S-
started or
So
after.
the inability or the lack of figure it outness maybe
Kind of.
is that thing that was holding people back where some of them probably could have had, like if you're talking to them I would assume that they're potential, right? It's
Yeah.
not like way off.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they could have it, and the only difference is just
Yeah. Do
that
they believe they
mindset.
can do it? Yeah. And sometimes it comes out before they even get through the licensing process. And sometimes it comes out after they go past their exam and get licensed and start working and
Hmm.
training. And we always like kind of joke, but it's very, very true. Like what we do is very simple, but it's not easy. Like we work hard,
Hmm.
but it's very simple and but not for everybody, like, and that's the cool part of what we get to do and educate, like, what are these things and how do they even
Hmm.
work? Like, what does AFLAC even do? But it's a very simple concept and a very simple thing that we do. It's just
Hmm.
not easy. It does take follow up. It takes follow through. It takes persistence. All of the things that can be
Yeah.
pretty tough
So
as you're building.
something like that, I feel like there's something really powerful about finding somebody in that on that tail end of college because they're kind of in that transitionary phase. They just spent a
Yes.
good amount of time test taking and studying. So
Yep.
now when they're expecting to have to go into the workplace and learn a bunch of stuff. So they're kind of
Yeah.
primed for success there. But because like anyone who's not in that role, like they have to go from something that's like stable into potentially learning the insurance
Yep.
world altogether, learning like what you need to do for your job
Yep.
and then like how that's going to lead towards long-term success. Like that's all.
And then
I
building a
feel like that's a
business.
lot of conversation.
It
Like
is.
did you ever have
It's a
anybody
lot of
where you just
camaraderie.
sat down and they're like, "Yep, sign me up."
Yeah.
Oh, that I want to hire that guy.
So, yeah. Right. I
Was it
know
good? Was it a good hire?
A lot of the times, yes. Yep. Sometimes there's not the follow through, but there
Hmm.
were, yeah, a number of people that are like, yep, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Like, let's get going. How do I start? And
Hmm.
so you kind of almost want to be a little cautious with those people,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
it's interesting. So Dale
but
Carnegie would have like a clock behind his desk, and he would ask people questions,
hmm
and he wouldn't tell them, but he'd give them like 60 seconds to make a decision, and then
okay,
because he knew like people that made decisions quickly would have the
be
success,
more
and he
successful.
like he was the millionaire maker. Like he just
Yep.
anyone that worked with him just
Just
so I
produced.
think there's something powerful in that those people that make those decisions quick.
Yep.
I know myself in business, that's like one of the things that maybe my team wishes I didn't do quite as fast. But it's
Can we
also
think
one of the
about
things
this
that's
little?
allowed us to grow and scale.
Yeah.
So all right, so you're using your psychology degree now during this recruiting process.
Yeah.
How long were you in that role before you actually became an agent?
Well, I was in the role from April 2016 to December 2019. But I got licensed in 2016. So right away that first year. And I held my license and just had
Hmm.
it. And then in 2018, I believe I hired someone to take over my spot in the office and started training and working with her, and then started working in the field. And so I
Hmm.
was hybrid for that last year. But my
Okay.
official end date in that role is December 2019,
Right before COVID,
right before
which is
COVID.
probably like a
Yeah.
good exit there.
Yeah. Well, I had
Potentially.
just well, yeah, exactly. And but twofold because I had just stepped into a district coordinator role very shortly after that in
Mm,
January 2020. And so then, yeah, and then COVID. So,
goodness.
yeah.
So why is it that you are working for Aflac? Like why Aflac? You sound like you have the figure it outness to work and do kind of whatever you put your mind to. So what
Oh,
is it
thank you.
about Aflac that like makes you want to be there?
It's just the passion that I get to have for
Okay.
what we do. They it's a so we're a Fortune 200 organization, but
Okay.
started by a family back in the 50s. And the three brothers, they started with the life policy, but then they realized that people going through cancer diagnoses were struggling really
Mm-hmm.
bad financially. And so they created the cancer protection that we have now. And it's really, I mean, it was the first of its kind in this kind of product.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of others now available, but they were just kind of the pioneer in building a product that pays cash to people as they're going through a cancer battle. They have the childhood blood disorder and cancer center down in Georgia. That's a big part of just what we do is like
Mm-hmm.
researching actually not just protecting people and paying them as they go through a
Mm-hmm.
cancer battle, but actually working on the front end to fight against it and try to cure, especially childhood cancer. um, I don't know if you know the stats, but actually, like cancer diagnosis now, it's 1 in 2 men, about 1 in 3 women, and about 1 in 250 kids that are diagnosed in their lifetime. Like,
That sucks.
it's insane. It does suck. And it's not discriminate. Like, it pops
Mm-hmm.
up literally anywhere, all over. And it's just crazy. And it's all over in my family. So when I learned that piece of what
Mm-hmm.
Aflac does, that was a huge passion for me, especially the childhood element. My
Mm-hmm.
cousin, she was 9 years old, diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor and wasn't supposed to live to be 10. But she's going to be graduating college here before too long. But
That's
she had
awesome.
about a 3% chance, being
Crazy.
inoperable, that it would be able to go into remission through radiation. And so you just see, you see people going through these situations
Mm-hmm.
day in and day out. As I'm working with clients, it's hard to find a room full of people where you say like, who knows someone has been personally affected or someone in their family has been affected by a cancer diagnosis. And you have so many hands go up, and then you spread it to like, okay, how about a friend or a neighbor? How about a coworker? Like, you don't have to go very far before everyone's hand is up
Yeah.
in that room. And so it's something that I really love about the company, like that it's such a big passion of theirs that they're working in that space to help people.
Yeah, because that's like hell on earth. And then you add
Yeah.
like the bankruptcy part to it. Like you said 50% of of
Over
bankruptcies that happen are because of medical.
over 60%. Yeah.
That's
From a Harvard study. So the crazy thing too, Matt, that Harvard study was done back in 2009.
and the incidences of cancer and everything else have just gone up. So there's a good chance that that
Right.
number's gone up.
Right. Well, and the cost of
Terrible.
major medical has gone up and it covers less than it ever has. It just in
Wow.
general since then. And so, yeah, it's just crazy. Now, the average cancer battle in the first year after diagnosis is an average $42,000 out of pocket cost to the family or the individual in the
That's
first
brutal.
year after diagnosis. I know. It's just crazy.
So what are you doing like in your day to day now? You're meeting with business owners,
Mhm.
and like are they reaching out to you? Or are you now having to recruit those potential customers of this service? Or tell me a little bit about like what your day to day is like.
Yeah, both. So we have some requests come into Aflac for benefit conversation, but very few and far between. For most business owners, benefits is kind of one of those topics where it's like, I will deal with that when I have to.
I hate it. It's
Or, well, it's yeah.
And then there's always, and then there's like the timeline where you can, the open enrollment period.
Mhm.
Talk about some BS, man. Like,
Yeah.
what's up with that? Where, like, how, like, that industry is like, everything comes down to this one little period. Like, how do you operate within that?
Isn't that crazy?
It's
You have to
it's
reach
kind of
medical.
like accounting, not so much, but
right.
what's that like? Like, because you have to like pretty much crush a few Red Bulls and just like keep working because like you can't get this time back.
The seasonality of the
Yeah.
business. Yeah. Yeah. So definitely very heavy fourth quarter. Like, yeah, we're off and running in the fourth quarter because a lot of clients are January 1st effective
Mhm.
date for their benefits enrollment. The beautiful thing about Aflac is we most often find that as far as like the habit or the pattern when we're doing major medical alongside the Aflac benefits for the company. Because then we're a lot of times falling in line with that January 1st effective
Because
date.
that's when the decision
And we
making
do their
process is.
education, and
Okay.
enrollment, in that that few month period beforehand.
So you have to meet them where they're at. You can't try to hit them in
Yeah.
June and want to have the conversation.
Yep. And especially with major medical. So those carriers release their next year's information, like the plan information, not very long before, like in quarter four, usually, like in October.
Super convenient.
And so I know, right? And so you don't even always have accurate plan information until like it's go time when it comes to the major medical side. So Aflac, the beauty of that is we work with the companies wherever they're at and per the seasonality that they have. So we still have our open enrollment period, which I understand can be like, I understand your lamentation of like, oh my gosh, it's just annoying. But also like, it's kind of nice once you get into the pattern of it and you just know like, okay, say we're off cycle and we're 4-1 or this company I was just working with this week, they're a 6-1. We're doing their open enrollment right now. And they just know like this period of time is their chance for education and to make any election changes in their benefits. And you just kind of get it used to.
Just put it on the calendar and that's when you make the decision.
The seasonality. Yeah. And as the business owner, it's nice for them because they get to know like, okay, this is our time of year where we make changes and we have deduction amount adjustments and that kind of thing versus just a free for all any time of year. Like, hey, Matt, so-and-so made this change and now this much needs to be deducted from their paycheck. And that's just coming at you like 12 months a year. It's kind of nice to have
I would
it
just
all,
forward
like,
that to my brother, Phil.
right? Yeah. Just forward that. So you send that right to Phil. Yes, but it is like, I understand where you're coming from too, but it's also kind of nice once you just kind of know what to expect and you don't have things flying at you all random times a year.
I have enough random stuff that I'm flinging at people all the time.
I'm sure.
I don't do well with with other people's randomness. So
yeah, I mean, this is a random kind of industry with pest control.
Yeah,
you have a lot of figuring out to do.
It's kind of the oh shit industry where people very, very well could have prevented this problem, like sign up for one of our programs, but they usually wait until it's like a traumatic experience. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. This is about you, not about me. So is there like a company size that you like work with more? Like an average company size for employees? Yeah,
like that 10 to 49 space is my average. Some clients are bigger and over that 100 employee space. And then it depends. Some of them if I'm involved in like any part of the education of the rest of their benefits, or if I'm just doing their Aflac education and enrollment. But yeah, primarily it's like that 10 to 50 space. But we can work with as small as 3. So I love my 3 employee
So
companies too.
so what are some of the things that you have to educate people on? Because you keep talking about education
Yeah.
that they think they know, but they actually don't know while they're going through that process.
Oh, goodness. Where to start? So benefits are just kind of one of those things usually, or insurance just in general. It's kind of one
It's
of
like a
those.
box to check.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
how I feel sometimes.
And it's a conversation where people's eyes can just kind of glaze over and you're like, oh, when is it going to be done? Like, can someone else just make this decision for me? Like,
Yes,
what's going to cost me the least? Like,
that's a
I don't
correct
even know
statement.
how, and so
Mhm.
it's just one of those
They're not
things.
thinking
And
about the right things.
right. Well, and you can't even blame them because you don't know what you don't know. Right. And
It's
so
the most
then
confusing thing of all time.
absolutely. And there's so much fine print. And I'll say, like, as a licensed agent, there are plenty of us in the licensed agent realms where, like, we get an insurance document and we don't even sit down and read all the fine print through there. Cause it's just, I mean, I've told people, like, if you need some good sleeping material, here, just read through
Yeah.
this pamphlet here.
Yeah.
But it can just be confusing and it can be overwhelming. And so there are a team of us actually within the Aflac family here locally that it comes from a colleague of mine. His name is Matt Steffens, but coined the phrase like responsible education. Like, we wouldn't be in a situation where so many bankruptcies in our country are a result of medical bills if we all had the education and knowledge behind like what different things are out there for us. Because there's a big mess in the insurance industry, and it's not going to be any single person who fixes it, and it's going to take some time before things can turn around as far as like major medical coverage, those kinds of things. And that's unfortunate, but also when we know what things are out there to go along with our necessity of major medical insurance, things like cancer protection or accident programs or short-term disability to replace our income if we get hurt or sick and we're stuck out of work for a while. Like, often we don't realize that those products even exist, or maybe you've heard about short-term disability before, but you don't really know what that means or how that would play into your life. And all of a sudden you're hurt or sick and realize what that feels like to go without a paycheck. And we're in a spot here in our country where the average American can't go more than 2 weeks without a paycheck before they're going backwards.
Like,
Absolutely.
if you're a business owner, like I remember I was like 20, 25, just becoming a business owner, and I'm like busting my butt, but because that's how I make money is going and doing service. Like, what happens if I'm hurt?
Yeah.
Like that, like how do
Screeching
how do you
halt.
make money? So anyone that like has to like work in the trades, especially, I feel like their body kind of has to do certain things, otherwise you can't accomplish what your day-to-day is.
Yes.
Not everyone gets to do Zoom calls all day, right? So,
Right. Exactly.
but it's for more than just those people, right? Because like things happen.
Everybody. Yeah.
Things happen in life. So
yep. So be able to protect your assets. Like, there's no reason that life happens. It's going to happen to all of us. None of us are immune. We're going to go through different things. We don't know what it looks like until it happens. Maybe it's this hospitalization or that diagnosis or this accident that we had to recover from. Like, it's going to happen, right? But we don't know, and we don't know what it's going to look like, but we can know and have things in place that will help us navigate financially through that situation. So we're able to focus on the important part of just getting better and getting back to work and back to normal day to day instead of, the financial stress behind it.
Like, as I'm thinking through it, like for my employees, like if they get hurt and they're out of work, obviously there's workman's comp and all that, but I feel like something
if they're hurt at work.
Yeah, true. That's a good point. Hopefully they're not.
Right.
Because we have a very safe workplace at Abracadabra. But
yes,
like if that happens, having something like that in place, I think would allow for a better retention of that employee, because now they're not in this crazy life scramble where they can't pay their rent or whatever, because they're the one that makes the money for the house. Like,
they're the breadwinner. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, and it's multiple. What you just said there is so key and on a few different things, because it goes both ways, right? It allows your employees that just peace of mind and knowing that they're in the like work environment that's going to take care of them. And we're not just here for a paycheck, right? We care about your financial well-being, your actual physical well-being, whether you're on the clock or off. You get hurt, we want to make sure you're financially cared for throughout that time and you have an income replacement through disability. The bulk of disability situations are not work comp related. The bulk of disability situations aren't even injury related. So not only are these disabilities not occurring, or not more often than not occurring at work, but they're not even injury related, they're illness related. And so you think about that aspect, and you want people to have that just peace of mind. Like, okay, if I have some kind of hospitalization, then
as
I'm
an
going to be okay.
employer, like you cover them and insurance on your employees for the 8 hours they're there, but that's only a third of the day and their life. So those other hours, I do think that shows a certain level of commitment when like an employer, you're offering that as a as an option, because it's kind of like I got your back.
Yes.
What's up with the duck though?
You.
Like, what's up with the duck? Does the duck have a name?
I don't even know if the duck has a name, honestly. A client was just asking me that the other day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think that he does. I think it's just Aflac. But I'm going to be really embarrassed now if it actually does have a name and I somehow don't know it by now. So the voice, the duck is so funny. I was literally just yesterday.
Like, what kind of vibe does the duck give off to you? Like, I'm getting like a Bert, or a Phil, maybe. Just kidding, Phil.
I don't know. Just kidding, Phil. Well, so the actual voice of the duck is from Hugo, Minnesota.
Tell me more.
So Gilbert Godfrey was the initial Aflac duck voice. And a lot of Aflac, so we're huge in Japan, Aflac is actually. And
never would have guessed.
Yes. And cancer protection is huge and one of their most commonly purchased policies because of the quality of air that they live in. Yeah, you can just walk into, I believe, the post office in Japan and buy an Aflac cancer policy. So yeah, very unique. But there were some comments that were made that were offensive to Japan, I think, after a tsunami or something. So they had to change the voice. So they did a nationwide casting call for a new voice of the duck and had a lot of people obviously put in. And yeah, a guy named Dan out of Hugo won.
Dan?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So the duck's name is not Dan, the guy who does the voice of the duck. He's Dan.
How long ago is this? I want to find Dan.
He's a great guy. So he's came.
Can you
so we were
introduce
doing.
me to Dan?
Yeah.
Please.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I want to. Okay. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Okay. Well, he's a great guy. So pre-COVID, we started getting some local. We were doing fundraisers for the Pediatric Cancer Center, here locally, and then sending it down to support the Childhood Cancer Center. And so it started getting kind of big. We were having it running ACEs. And so he came and joined us at those events. Once I found out that he was local, I'm like, I have to get my hands on his phone number and connect with him. And so, yeah, I did. And he came and joined us for the couple of years. We were turning it into an annual event pre-COVID and just kind of gaining some steam. So I would love to bring that back. But yes, he's a great guy. And I would love to connect the two of you.
What an interesting casting call.
Yeah.
Just have people send in short little clips of it's kind of annoying, right?
Aflac. I know, it's hilarious, but people love it.
Well, it sticks because it's kind of oh, all right, they got this duck and there's this
but it's an acronym. Aflac stands for American Family Life Assurance Company of Columbus. So they shortened it Aflac. But then what
it's
sounds
genius marketing, what it is.
Quacking. Yeah, it's just it's hilarious. But yes, he is a great guy. Dan is a great guy. And the duck has really done a number on, we're one of the top 5 most recognized brands in the nation.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But most people have no idea what we do, but yes.
But some of that doesn't matter. You kind of sort of do, because there's enough that happens there. I might not, actually, I didn't know that it was an acronym until right now. Learn something new every day. But I did know that it was insurance. So the branding is that level of permanence in somebody's mind. So they at least have some type of reference point that you exist. That's the first step for marketing.
Yes.
Is hey, this exists as an option.
Right.
And
everybody knows
this is a brand that exists out there. And that's something we've had to battle.
A
Um,
trustworthy brand, right? You want to build it and
yeah.
really, yeah.
So right now, your day to day, you're connecting with
Business
small business
owners,
owners, right?
yep.
Is there a period of time that people maybe wait a little too long and should have talked to you earlier, or does the
When they just have a
flexibility?
diagnosis.
Okay, yeah, well,
That's always the
okay,
hardest.
yeah,
Yeah. No, yeah. As far as just like operational or business, like
hmm,
Aflac is a very, very flexible and user friendly benefit. So we can come in and partner with the business really at any phase as far as that goes. But yeah, the hardest, I mean, just to answer your question in all honesty, that is the hardest part of what I do, right? Is
hmm,
when I'm talking with the company and especially with our small employers who care so much about their
hmm,
staff and don't have something in place. Cause then you find employers in a situation when like they're taking on that financial risk then and well, I want to pay them while they're going through the situation or help them through, you know, with
hmm,
the medical bills, whatever the case looks like. And that's a lot to take on as a company, especially because what you do for one, you have to do for all, or you can get in trouble, you
yeah,
know? And so that's the hardest thing. Cause we're like, oh man, when we can get ahead of that stuff and get protection in place and at
hmm,
least they have the option. I mean, if they don't have the coverage, that's unfortunate, obviously, in that situation, but you did your best as a business owner bringing it
hmm,
in and having it offered, having them
yeah.
educated, and they made their decisions accordingly. Like that's the best, you did the best that you could do, right? And
Yeah,
you get to
because
feel good about that.
part of the obligation we have as business owners is to like create this opportunity that allows for like a healthy
Work
existence and a
environment.
life, right? And
Yeah,
it has different contingencies in place to help support that individual
right.
in more than just that paycheck,
Yep.
and really like these well-rounded plans and these things that support individuals. That's like, I think it gets overlooked sometime in the hiring process because the number being thrown out there, it really like anytime it's like salary or hourly range, like that's
Yep.
thrown out there, people just go straight to that.
Yep.
So as employers, like how would you recommend people that have benefits and maybe Aflac, like how do you have them position that when they're going through that hiring process so that maybe some of those intangibles are better taken into account?
Oh my goodness. Yes. So it's 100% on what you just said.
Hmm.
And education. That's going to be my biggest, like, so just education behind what it is that you're doing and why. A lot of times, I mean, like we just talked about, this is one of the most heavily misunderstood topics in parts of life. It's like kind of one of those necessary evils as far as people view insurance a lot of
Hmm.
times. And they've all had different experiences. Some people have been burned by it. It didn't work how it said it was going to,
It's a
whatever the case
commodity.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, really, like, I mean, we've done all kinds of things, like even including in your hiring paperwork, not just the salary information, but also the value of the benefit package that you're offering. Say you're contributing
So you're
$100 a month
you're
to
bringing that
their
education about what the benefits package really is
right,
right to that hiring and onboarding, or
right.
even ahead of the onboarding, but more like offer letter and
Yep. And putting that
huh,
right as a part of the compensation so that it's because unless you're doing it, unless they're in that situation running a company and bringing in benefits for employees, they have no idea what it costs. They have no idea, not just the actual cost of
yeah,
bringing in benefits and what that can cost, what the employer is
interesting.
contributing, but the time,
Because
right, that goes
well,
into.
like me, like
And
as a business owner, I've made decisions about this, and I
mhm,
still don't even really know what it is. So, like thinking as a like as a employee, would probably think the same thing. Like, I don't
yeah,
even know what that means, let alone what value it has. So I'm not going to
right,
check a box.
exactly.
Um, and like that lack of information in that decision making process can really suck down the line
Yes.
for employees. So it's almost like an
We,
obligation to better educate those people
right.
at that point.
And remind them. That's where
Hmm,
the yearly open enrollments, like, so a lot of people are used to, and yeah, bringing back the responsible education, like how we do things is definitely different. We're on site and either doing a group education with the
hmm,
employee group and a yearly overview of the benefits and how they work, maybe any enhancements that have come out or any additions or whatever. Like sometimes a business owner wants to highlight life insurance or highlight something.
hmm,
Maybe they had a work comp fiasco. They want to highlight disability, make sure everyone has disability moving forward. Whatever that
Mm-hmm.
case can look like, but we add that in as a part of the education so we can kind of tailor it year over year. So it stays fresh and new and exciting, but it keeps it in front of them. Like, how easily do we forget things nowadays? You
Mm-hmm.
can tell somebody like, oh yeah, by the way, the value of the benefits that you're offered here on top of what you take home, your overall comp is
Mm-hmm.
$100 a month, or maybe a few dollars an hour sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the benefit package.
And the why,
Um,
like we're doing this and this is a value, and
mhm.
I think the why is almost more important there.
Yeah,
Like, because this is the type of company we are, and the
right.
commitment we have to you is more than just that.
Yes.
Just being like giving you the paycheck. Like,
Yeah.
we want to make sure you have success. Like, being able to put that as a company into words, or at least have a
Yeah.
conversation about it, I think is really powerful for
Yeah.
helping that person make the best decision in where they're going to commit their
Right.
potential career.
Right.
We're doing a lot of hiring right now because we're growing quickly. So this
Yeah.
is like I'm thinking about a lot of these things,
Yeah.
and how even like I've probably, because of my lack of understanding as an employer, haven't passed that information along adequately to, like, I'm going to change some things based off this conversation. So thank you.
The link in the email or packet of paper can be very hard to just rifle through on your
Well,
own as an employee.
and it's
and
almost
feel-
like overwhelming
It
too.
is.
Like
You don't
you're
leave
like
feeling
you're
good.
changing. Like, you used to work somewhere else. Now you're going to come work here.
Yeah.
What, like, I don't even remember that guy's name that just handed me this packet, but I have to read all this, understand it, comprehend it, then make potential life-changing decision. Like, what the,
Yes.
like, so spending time as an employer there and educating,
Yeah.
that's important, and probably just that little bit of time
Yeah.
could potentially make or break, like, does this employee come work for you,
Right.
or do they not?
Yeah. Well, and not even having a partner for you as a business owner, like, you have 1,000,002 things going on. Like, I actually do that for my clients where they're like, hey, I have a new person coming on. Like, can you run through the benefit education with them and help them make their elections for their effective date?
That's
like after their probationary period.
That's an X factor of value right there.
Yeah.
Because it simplifies the conversation. It also takes any level of unknowing that the employer might have about that. And it brings it right to the subject matter expert, right?
Yeah.
And that
Saves your
probably
time.
creates more, it saves time, it creates clarity. It allows for the best answers to questions that the employee might have.
Yeah.
Is that kind of just part of what Aflac does?
Yeah. Everyone does it a little bit differently, but most of us will, operate in that way. Where
That's
we just
good.
work through seasonality with new hires and things as our businesses are growing or just
Fascinating.
going through their busy season.
So if somebody's trying to get a hold of you and has questions about this, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Phone or email, or chase me down if you see me around town.
What's the best phone number if you want to say it out loud?
Okay, 651-497-9514.
All right. And then do you have like a physical office, or do you kind of just go and meet people?
I just float around. No, I'm just kidding. Do
you have goats now?
No, oh my gosh. I would love to, but they are so hard to keep in anywhere. Like, I would have to probably have some kind of 10-foot fence situation. I don't know. I mean,
do you need to have more than one goat if you get a goat?
I would. Otherwise, it's going to be all over in your business. You got to get it a friend.
I wish Aflac had a goat.
Or a pony.
That would have been better.
So goats are really good friends to like horses or ponies.
Tell me more.
Or alpacas or whatever. So you could get like one goat and one of something else, so it has a friend.
My wife's probably listening to this and she's like, "You're not getting no goats, homie."
Stop giving him ideas. Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
So, all right. Anyone wants to reach out to you, we've got that. Is there anything else you want to say before we ask you one final question?
Oh, one thing, just an aside of what you were saying earlier on like the disability and the work comp. One thing that stood out to me that is so key, and that a lot of employers don't realize when they're just going through business, like to your point, hopefully if someone experiences something, it's not a work comp situation, right? We're hoping that no one's getting hurt while they're at work and on our time. That's less than ideal. But actually, most of work comp claims happen before noon on a Monday. So the majority. And so when you look at the statistic around that, it's kind of twofold. But offering disability is, I mean, you mentioned the heart behind it of like, why is this so key, right? You want people to know they're taken care of 24 hours a day, not just 8 hours a day while they're on the clock. But it also insulates the employer from being in a situation where someone does get hurt over the weekend. And here they are like, oh man, well, I can't go without my paycheck. Like I just got to buck up and make it work, and I'm going to work. And then they come in and have some kind of compromised situation, which maybe ends up in them actually getting more hurt at work, and or you have a fall off a ladder situation, which is super unfortunate, but does happen to people. And then, then you're in a work comp fiasco, which is costly and they suck. Yes. And definitely, I mean, you look even at the payout on the disability side for the employees, it's like pulling teeth and takes so much longer typically through work comp than if we're filing through Aflac and they're paid in like a week or two.
That's a really interesting fact that the majority of workman comp claims happen
Monday morning.
I mean, there could be an array of things for why that's the reason, but
yes, agreed.
How do you I'm thinking like, how do I make sure the first half of Monday is the safest freaking day ever? Like, how do you do that?
No climbing,
and like you reverse engineer that whole process.
Right. Yeah. But I think I think like you said, it could be attributed to so many different things. But I think too, just when people are in a hard spot, like, if you actually got hurt over the weekend and you're like, man, I don't know if I should go to work, but then like, well, I have to because we got to pay the bills. Like desperate people do desperate things. Like you just have to do what you have to do to take care of your family, so you can hardly even blame them. But it's nice to not have to be like, yeah, good job, you're so tough, you came to work even though you're hurt. Like that's not a situation that anyone wants to be able to applaud. And I think our culture is kind of maybe swinging back more toward that way of like, no, if you're injured, like take care of yourself, take the time that you need to be healed and then come back. We want you at 100%, not here working while you're not 100%. Yeah.
Well, that can be a liability to other people and your business as well, especially if there's any machinery or anything involved.
Yep.
Thank you for saying that. Insurance, although my eyes do glaze over when I talk about it. Typically, it did not today, which I think the cameras will be able to tell when this gets released. So thanks again for coming on the Homegrown Hustle. We've got one question we ask everybody. What's the word hustle mean to you in terms of business?
Just never giving up. I think it's I think a lot of times kind of equated more with just like striving and kind of like that, like always be striving for more and more. And I don't think it's necessarily that for me, because I love contentment in life. I think that's very important, but I think it's just like never giving up. Like no matter what life throws your way, you just continue moving forward one step in front of the other. Like no matter what
just even
visions you might have, as crazy or far-fetched as they seem, like you just go for it and put one foot in front of the other.
Well, and there's a level of content that comes with having the confidence and the figure it outness, right? When you just know like you can do it, like
we'll figure it out.
Like it's easier to be at that like kind of content space. So
probably
that kind of comes full circle. Well, thank you again so much for coming on, Samantha. I really appreciate you. Thanks everyone for listening to the Homegrown Hustle today. Again, I'm Matt Eickman. Appreciate having you on today,
Thanks
Samantha.
for having me. I appreciate it.
That was a good one. Shout out to goat farmers.
Thanks again for joining us on Homegrown Hustle. Our local business community thrives because of the brilliant leaders right here in our backyard. And it's been an absolute privilege to provide them with a platform to share their invaluable expertise. Stay tuned for more insight, wisdom, and inspiration from our local business champions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we'll continue to nurture and expand our homegrown success stories. Matt Eickman signing off until our next insightful episode.